Hey, it's FML, otherwise known as Founders Music Lab. This is the intro we do after we've done the episode. And then, of course, we'll have another intro after I do this. Fun times, right? Anyway, so this is where we celebrate founders, musicians, and the people who help drive the success of founders and musicians. So one of the most impressive startups to come out of Waterloo, as most people know, is Research in Motion, otherwise known as BlackBerry. Today's guest was Employee 52, and a key contributor to the development of the company's revolutionary technologies. We talk about what the environment was like in the beginning stages and as the company grew. We discuss the nature of creativity and the drivers of innovation. And then we talk about the things that destroy innovation. It's a lesson that every corporation should take heed of and every innovator should respect. Our guest today is Sassan Sanei, an immigrant from Tehran, when he was 5 years old. So he's been here a while. A dual graduate from the University of Waterloo and one of the early group of co-op students to get employed by RIM. Now, RIM, of course, is a big part of our guest's life, but it certainly doesn't define him. He's brilliant. That brilliance shows up not only in his love of technology, but mostly in his love of humanity. His curious mind has led him to understand the world in a very positive, and I'd say different way. And he is constantly learning and teaching. What a very uplifting and inspiring conversation. We were mesmerized, as I'm sure you will be too. So grab an Eco Coffee and enjoy our time with Sassan Sanei. Welcome to the Founders Music Lab, the home of the FML, where we talk to amazing people about how they found their lives, their purpose, and their road to happiness. I'm your founder guy, Bill Waters, and I'm joined by the music guy, Steve Lehmann.
Hello, Bill.
Hello, Steve. Thanks for coming.
Hey.
Again.
Every Tuesday.
No comment. Try the veal. And our coffee guy, Ed Denier.
Hola.
Hola.
I'm simple today.
You are simple.
Simple man.
Good thing we're not talking about what we were just talking about before we started recording. Wasn't that simple? Anywho.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, well, okay. So today's guest is a really good friend of Steve, and Steve has been after me to invite him on. And as Steve puts it, Sassan Sanai is one of the smartest guys he knows, which is pretty scary because Steve is one of the smartest guys I know. So I'm afraid we won't be able to keep up, but I'm hoping he lowers his standard for Ed and I.
Please. Yes, please.
So Sassan was an early employee with Research in Motion and part of the early development team. He is also the founder of a startup called Arty Art, and we'll talk about where that ended up, a digital platform for the promotion of artists and their offerings. And in keeping with the founder-music relationship, Sassan has a love for music and was a student of our very own The Music Guy.
Hey, that's
Steve
me.
Lehmann. And I've heard little snippets of Sassan's past through Steve, and I can't wait to hear it straight from Sassan's mouth. I just met him for the first time a few minutes ago before we started this thing, and I can tell you he's a pretty cool dude. So I'm looking forward to learning more about Sassan. So with that, I'd like to welcome Sassan Sanai to our little coffee hideout, and thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks so much for having me here. That's a terrific introduction. When
Steve and I have conversations, I'm always thinking, what a smart guy I'm talking to. And I feel humbled in his presence. So
Dueling banjos, I think.
we can be talking
It's okay.
about...
Bill and I will elevate you
We'll
highly today.
we'll bring you down. Well, yeah, either you're coming down or you're bringing us up.
He'll bring me questions about quantum physics that I'm just, has to stretch my intellect to new levels to be able to.
The problem is you
contemplate
can
what he's
answer
asking.
them.
He can.
Well, sometimes
He absolutely can.
with a lot of hand waving and gesticulating wildly.
Oh, and he uses words like gesticulating.
You're going to love his vocabulary.
For I do vocabulate eloquently at times.
Oh, nice.
I'm just kidding.
You might have testicular cancer.
Gotta get that checked out.
Yes.
That's very punny.
Well, should I start?
Yeah.
What? Okay.
So first of all, your name. I like it, but for a different reason. So I'm Colombian, and we have a word that's very similar called sazon.
Sasson.
And sazon is the flavor that a particular human will add to a dish that they make that's particular to their ability to cook.
Like seasoning.
Like seasoning, but sazon is much more
Personally,
personal, it's much more specific, and if the dish has the right sazon, then it's perfect. So it's a really easy way to say your name
dude,
to
we
me.
have the right Sassan in the room here.
There you go.
So cool.
Sazon.
That is such a terrific
It's
word.
spelled a little different, but
We don't
it
have a
sounds
word like
close.
that in English.
No,
do
it's
we?
not. No,
I love these words from other languages that convey an idea that we just don't have a word for in our own vocabulary.
Oh, Bill, you should have told it to be quiet.
I did.
Sorry about that. You're right, and I'm a linguist. I'm a coffee guy. I'm an ex-engineer. So I've done quite a few things in life.
Right on.
But I love words that don't have meaning or specific equivalent meanings in other languages because it gives you a perspective into the mindset of how they were articulating something about that specific thing or that what that word meant to them. So it's actually very interesting.
German is very rich in that, isn't it? Like Schadenfreude and Doppelganger, right?
Yes.
Like these are words that we don't have exact
So we just
translations
borrow
for in
theirs.
English.
We
but
just borrow
we
them
borrow
directly.
theirs, and everybody knows what they mean.
Yeah.
The Sasson, that's a great word. I've not one
Yeah,
I've heard before.
Sasson. So
Sasson.
so it's
Sasson.
it goes down on the O.
Sasson.
Sasson.
How do you spell that so people can look it up later? If
Honestly,
they're
it's
nerdy?
Sazon.
Oh, okay.
So in Spain it would be Sazon.
Sazon.
That's right.
But in Spain they don't use it, so it's a Colombian.
Oh, I see.
Maybe Venezuela too. I'm not sure. It might be just a northern Latin America thing. But I'm not really sure. Anyway, I like to start this thing by first of all, we've never met, so it's even better for me because I get to see kind of a snapshot into someone else's life. I live in a small world, my coffee company, my coffee environment. I have a little cafe. And so I'm a busy guy and I'm always on the go, but it's always kind of in this small, hemisphere of my things. So I love to jump in and ask about a day in your life. It gives me a perspective of who you are, what you do, where you do. And it doesn't have to be today, for example. It could be, when you were working with a particular company or something that you did in the past. It's more just kind of a snapshot of a day-to-day life, whether it be family, whether it be travel, whether you commute, all those fun things.
Right on. Well, day in my life will be so different depending on when in my life we're looking on, whether it's today or 10 or 20 or 30 years ago. But I like to start every day with a sense of wonder and possibility. So what do I plan to get done today? And first thing I do when I wake up is write down in my to-do list on my reminders app on my phone 5 things I want to get done today. And it could be something like, completing a major project, or it could be something as simple as, I want to make pizza dough for dinner. I want to make that myself today. Something simple, something complicated, but 5 things I want to get done today. And it's not even about checking off boxes at the end of the day. It's just about having a vision for what my day will be and seeing how it unfolds. Now, the thing about setting goals for me is rarely do I achieve the exact goal that I set out to make, right? Sound familiar, right?
Yep.
But it gives me a sense of direction and a sense of purpose. And then the life, it takes you, it meanders this path that goes around what you thought you were going to do and takes you down somewhere else, and you end up doing even more interesting things. So that's how my day starts. Beyond that, I'm a very talkative person. So I'll call up someone and have a conversation with them, or Steve and I will text, or I'll jump on social media and see what's happening outside in the fake real world. And,
Lots to talk about there.
And then, of course, a cup of coffee would be remiss to not start my day with that. Steve, I don't know how you do it.
I never have.
Just think how productive he would be.
Well, that's just it.
And enjoyable.
It is. I'm really enjoying this coffee, by the way.
It is really good,
It is very good. Very tasty.
We have a bag for you there.
Is that for me?
Yeah,
Yes.
man.
I didn't get it. Where did it go?
Oh, we'll
Can I
get
have
you another one.
That's awesome.
A
Thank
bigger
you.
one.
I might know where there is some more.
And the mug.
Oh, awesome.
That's your mug underneath.
Ooh, fancy.
See, for any potential guests in the future,
We treat you right.
we treat you right.
Yeah, you come here and get mugged.
Yes, you get mugged.
Uh-oh. Should have left my wallet at home.
So that gets you to about 9 a.m.
That gets me to about 9 a.m. And then I do the things I need to do. And this is where every day is different. So let's say I took a course on Python programming recently. I didn't learn Python when I was in school because that wasn't a language that really existed at the time. So I said I'm just going to take one. And Harvard does all their CS courses online, I think called like CS50X or something like that. It's a really terrific program. It's completely free. You get all the same lessons and lectures online that students there would receive. Like, we're talking first and second year CS students. And for me, a lot of the concepts are reviewed, but the syntax of the language and the language specific ideas, those are coming new to me. So if I want to be able to write something in this language, I need to learn how to do it. So I might hop on that and watch a lecture. Those run typically about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then get to work on the assignments. Now, that's not every day. That's when I'm in that learning mood. But one of the things as I get older is I never want to stop learning, right? Whether it's new words in another language, or whether it's a computer language, or some new skill that how to use a router. And I'm talking about woodworking, not
Yeah.
to be clear. I know how to use a Wi-Fi router.
Yeah, you got that one?
And then doing all the things I set out to do that morning, and hopefully having a little time throughout the day to do things for myself as well. So it's there's no set formula, but I don't follow a very rigid work schedule for myself either. So I do have the freedom to shape each day as the mood strikes me.
Do you have to go to an office? Do you have to commute anywhere?
No, I haven't done that since before the pandemic. So it's and I feel very fortunate to be able to manage my time myself without having to do that. I know there's.
I think that's probably as a result of some of the things that you've done in the past. That gives you the freedom today.
Yeah, exactly. Sets me up to be able to do that now. When you're in your 20s and 30s, you work toward the things you want to be able to do in your 40s and 50s, right? And so here I am. And
Took me till 60.
Shit,
but
that's where I
I
went
know,
wrong.
we're at 60 now.
yeah. So those and I'm very grateful to be able to do that. But yeah.
That's awesome.
Very interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
It is a common here, before you jump in, it is a common thread that we find that most of the people that we invite to speak with us here are of that same non-structured but meaningfully oriented life. So we found it's a common thread with people that are, maybe it's also the type of people that we want to talk to, entrepreneurs, musicians, and more older than younger, is that they're established, they have patterns, they have cognition in terms of what it is that they want out of life, and they frame their life to be able to do those things, but also with a good quality of life. If we were interviewing 21-year-olds, it would be like, well, I go to work.
However,
Bill and I.
Yeah.
However, Bill and I still go to work at 8 o'clock.
Have yet to figure it out.
We're still learning.
Well, yeah. No, but we've talked to
Well, I said mostly.
Like comeback snacks.
no, right.
Emily.
And she's go all day.
But I think it also takes if it's not having gone through the sort of the systemized processed, you have to do this from this time to this time and follow somebody else. If you haven't had to go through that, the alternative is having had some catastrophic event happening that wakes you up to let you understand that, you know what, life is too short. Let's really do what makes us happy. What drives our curiosity and keeps us moving forward, as opposed to just trying to go day to day and pay a bill.
I agree. And I mean, honestly, all kidding aside, is I do this from when I can in the morning until I'm too tired at the end of the day. Not because I have to. Like, I don't have to be doing any of this, because at this point, this is self-sustaining. But I truly find passion in what I do, and the best place to do that is here, amongst the things that that we're trying to achieve. So for me, it's a reason to be here.
Well, you're living your best life. You're doing
Yes.
what brings you joy, and
Correct.
And I'm of the belief that this is the one life we have to live. There is no afterlife to speak of. So when we work in this life to achieve the things we want in this life, we need to do them when we want to do them, and be able to enjoy the outcome of that in the time that we have, because you never know what tomorrow will bring, right? I mean, that's something that I try to be cognizant of. But beyond that, if something doesn't bring me joy, if I'm doing something purely to make some money and pay bills, or to meet an obligation that I made to nobody in particular, who doesn't care whether I meet that obligation or not, but maybe it's just self-imposed, but for no real articulable reason, then why am I doing those things, right? Because all I'm doing is setting myself up for some kind of regret in the future. Oh gosh, I really wish I had spent my time doing this other thing instead.
Like a podcast?
Like a podcast. I'm loving this. This is great.
Is this your very first podcast?
This is my first podcast.
Oh, look at
that's
this.
exciting.
Yes.
2 firsts in a row.
Neil was first last week, and now you.
and actually, see, when you invited me to do this, I felt this this moment of imposter syndrome, right? Where I'm like, well, gosh, I'd love to do it. It sounds really exciting. I listened to a bunch of your episodes and really liked what all your guests had to say, but these are really interesting people with some terrific stories to tell and some amazing insights into life. And I'm thinking, well, do I have something interesting to tell?
Oh, you definitely do. You absolutely
I don't
do.
know that I do.
Oh, I think
we'll
you
find
do.
out.
I think you do.
Okay.
You want to start with?
Yeah, let's start with it.
Let's go.
Because I understand you weren't born here,
No.
and you came here when you were around 5.
Yeah, I was 4. I was born in. Well, I mean, there's a short answer to that question. There's a long answer to that
Which
question.
one's more
Interesting.
What will get more
The
clicks?
train was moving the whole time while he was
train was
being
moving.
born.
Yes.
So I was born in a city called Tehran, which continues to
Yep.
exist, in a country at the time known as the Kingdom of Iran, which no longer exists, but
Right.
did exist for over 2,500 years. And then everybody woke up one day to find that the country had basically been replaced by a tiny group of religious zealots who had taken over the country and formed a government, and they decided to equate religious authority with government. And
What?
so there was
Islamic resolution.
there was
I
so
know, but something like that is happening next door, isn't it?
it's
Yeah.
it's
Anyways, I know. But This is why.
and this is, we have to be so, freedom is something that we all take for granted in Canada. Even me, because I was 4 years old when we came to Canada, and what we have here is, in this country right now, is so incredible, and something we have to hold on to so tightly and not take for granted. And there are these, and social media has amplified their voices, these conspiracy theorists who are making up a bunch of BS about paths we're going down that we're not, and they're failing to see the real threat to our freedoms, which is ignoring when small groups in government try to seize power and amplify that power for themselves. And I don't want to get into politics.
Yeah,
it's
no,
just
but
that-
it does sort of it sort of reflects on your beginnings
It
as
does.
well. And so you're 4 years old. Was that a move that was predicated out of necessity, or
No, so we were very fortunate. So we moved to Canada when I was 4, and that was in 1977. The Islamic Revolution in Iran happened in 1979.
The next year. Oh, 2 years.
Yeah,
It was
so
79, yeah.
I mean, my parents maybe had a sense that things were not going great, but we left a good life, and there was no imminent danger at the time that we left. So we came to Canada for economic opportunity, and it was. It wasn't because of a political situation unfolding in Iran. We were very, very fortunate because most of my family members, of course, were still there when all of this went down. And, overnight, women's rights were abolished. There was, political repercussions were made. And I mean, I don't want to get into that whole thing, but I had this incredible opportunity. I'm grateful for this every day to grow up and become an adult in this country, in Canada, where we have so much freedom and so much opportunity without anyone telling us, you must think this way or you must behave this way, or we will imprison you or torture you or kill you. And oh my gosh, I'm going down a path I didn't intend to go down in this conversation. But, this is
critical.
Well, and we're only at 4, so don't worry.
And you're still in Iran. So you haven't even left the country yet.
Well, let me tell you about the amazing Iranian people and the culture and the geography, and the food is so good. There's all these wonderful things about the culture, and I try to stay connected to it through that and the language, right? So
Do you still have family there?
our family has all moved to Canada now.
Oh,
So
nice.
I'm very
Okay.
fortunate.
Yeah, very good.
So we're all here, but many of them had to escape, on foot over mountains into Turkey or other locations north, typically, and it's a very harrowing thing to go through, especially when you're young and these are your formative years as a teenager, trying to escape the only country you know. So, we were very fortunate. We took a flight from Lufthansa to Frankfurt, and then
First class.
and the connecting flight
horrible.
Air Canada to Toronto. I mean, that's we had a very fortunate path to.
But how long was the
come here.
layover?
How long was the layover?
And what was the food like on the plane?
Wasn't it as good as the
No,
stuff in
back then, Lufthansa probably had really good food, too.
I'm sure they did, but airplanes also had smoking sections. At
Yeah,
the time,
that's
and I
right.
do
Oh, that's
remember
true.
that.
When I was a kid, we used to fly a lot of TWA.
Is that right?
My
Yeah,
dad
yeah.
was, he was living overseas too, so we flew to TWA, which doesn't exist anymore. But there was, the smoking sections and full-on meals that were served with cutlery and
Cutlery,
everything
yeah.
on ceramic plates.
knives,
Yeah, it
sharp
was amazing.
knives.
Oh, I remember this. One of my earliest childhood memories, in fact, was being served a chicken leg, like a drumstick, with this very fancy paper napkin wrapped around the part that you hold so you don't get your fingers greasy all over the plane. It's fancy, right? Anyway,
Fancy, yeah.
So, it's a privilege that I had was to
So
be
why
able to come
why'd
here
your parents
at that
come?
age.
Like did they see the opportunity? Was it a job or was it?
Well, my dad was an engineer. He studied. So my dad went to school in England and then went back to Iran, where he was born, for his career there. So he worked for the oil company in Iran. And at the time, in the 1970s, we had the oil embargo that started in 1973, and suddenly the oil sands in Alberta were worth pulling, right? Because it's this awful. It's very hard to
Sludge.
extract the oil
Yeah.
from that. So my dad was going to go help with the engineering side of that. So our destination was actually going to be Alberta, but we moved to Toronto. My parents loved the city, and we actually, to this day, have not been to Alberta. I'd like to go someday. So we
I'm
settled.
going
in.
next week.
Are you really?
Yep.
What are you doing there?
Oh, my son and grandson and daughter-in-law are there.
Oh, right on.
They went out there and got stuck in the sand. And
got stuck in the sand, yeah.
I'm gonna pull them out.
So we ended up in Toronto, and that's where I grew up, and then I moved to Waterloo in 1991. So I was 18 at the time.
So would you say? Did you moved here for school, or no? You were here for school, right?
Yes, I attended school high school, elementary school in North York in Toronto.
Right.
And then I moved to Waterloo to go to the University of Waterloo. And so that was 34 years ago, and I'm still here.
So that was philosophy.
I did 2 programs.
Yeah.
I did philosophy.
Is that the one you
degree.
started with?
I started with electrical engineering,
Okay.
and that's actually what brought me to Waterloo. So I heard about Waterloo because they had this really terrific outreach program. They have these math competitions that we all, those of us who are in the advanced math classes would participate in.
That was me.
That was you, eh?
That was not me.
No, that was not you.
Not at all. Like, not even a little bit.
I still have. I kept some of these old math competitions.
Oh,
and
awesome.
you can see some of the questions that were asked, and I wonder if I could solve them now, because you forget a lot of this stuff as you get older. But I was so fascinated by this stuff. I saw math as the language of the universe. There was nothing that you could express. There was nothing that could not be expressed in a mathematical way, right? No idea could not be reduced to that, and it was so cool to me. And so my plan was to either go into pure math for research or applied science, and in this case, I chose electrical engineering. So I did that for about a year and a half, and I learned a lot. I was good at it. I enjoyed what I was doing. I was in the co-op program, so I had some really terrific work experience in that first work term as well. But I didn't feel like I was getting an education in humanities. I didn't feel like I was learning about the world, and that's something I was really looking forward to in university was not just learning how to do things, but also understanding about how humanity works, how does society work, how does the mind work. And I wasn't really getting that in engineering. And so they allow you in second year, I think there's either room for one arts elective, or I just took an extra course. I forget how I did it. But I took a course in philosophy. And it was just an introductory course, like a 101 type course. But I loved it. And I loved it more than anything else I had studied so far. And this wasn't something I had been really...
What would you attribute that to?
I think just because it was all these terrific new ideas that I hadn't heard of before, this way of articulating ideas that maybe had been floating around in my head about how we see things and why we think the way we do and how we think critically about things. And most importantly, how do we know what is true? If we're told something, how do we know whether it's true? What are the parameters we use to
the critical
decide
thinking?
that? Yeah,
That's something that drives me as well.
Right?
Very much. I think we're very alike in that way.
I think so. I think it's probably why we're such good friends, is because we both see it that way. And this was a piece that was, I think in engineering it's understood that you're a critical thinker, but you're not taught how to be a critical thinker. You're taught how to apply critical thinking, which is wonderful, and it's a very key part of that. But I liked going back to the.
But if you don't know the why,
and I was fascinated by
the why is the missing.
Yeah. A lot of my friends couldn't understand my fascination with that. So
I'll interrupt just for 1 second,
Yeah.
because I found a YouTube video when I was starting to learn a little bit about philosophy that just kind of talked about each major philosopher for maybe 30 seconds. And I remember going, why didn't anybody tell me this? What? How? And then I had a passing interest in it ever since. I haven't done a deep dive.
You didn't get a degree.
No,
See?
I didn't. But if I
That's
was
why
back
Sassan
at school,
is
I
far
would
more-
definitely have taken a course, knowing what I know now.
Yeah, and
about
it's not too late. You can.
Oh, I know.
You can.
Yeah.
You can.
No,
still
I'm keeping
sign
him
up for-
busy. Don't, yeah, no. Yeah.
It takes me 36 hours to edit one of these podcasts. Anyway, I'm sorry I derailed.
No, that's a
Yeah.
great point, because you can take these courses now as an alumnus. You can still go back and sign up for courses and do that, and you'll get a credit out of it if you choose to do that, or you can just audit the course.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is offered online now. Of course, at the time, I would take some of these courses by correspondence, which involved
Oh my gosh.
writing out
Actually
my
mail?
assignment. Yes,
In
mailing
the mail?
in
Like
the
we're talking
mail.
stamps?
I'd get a co-op work term in Montreal, and I would mail my assignments to my professor in Waterloo, and then they would mail me back my graded assignment. It was great. It was a really great program, but this is pre-internet, right?
Yeah.
Well, and see, right now with Canada Post situation, you'd fail. You'd fail.
You didn't get
You'd
it.
never get them there.
Take you 9 years.
Yeah, so I was taking these. I took the one course. I enjoyed it so much, I decided to take more. And I called up my parents and I said, "Hey, I'm really liking these philosophy courses. I think I might want to change to this. I get a degree in philosophy and see where that takes me." And they're like, well, that's terrific, and we support you in doing that. But I think they were also kind of kept it to themselves a bit, but alarmed that I was going to give up everything I had worked toward in my engineering degree. So they said, why can't you do both? And I thought, put on my critical thinking hat and thought, well, there is no reason I can't do both. I just have to work twice as long, twice as hard. And I can do that. Sure. I don't mind working hard. I like to learn. And the beauty of it is, of course, we have these, because of the co-op program in engineering, we have the opportunity to take courses, like I say, by correspondence at the time, or I guess it was online now, during the work terms remotely. And you can take an extra course when you're on campus. So I went and talked to the advisors and at a school, and I said, look, this is what I want to do. Can I do both? Well, we don't do a double major because they're two different faculties, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like you can do a double major in philosophy and history because they're both offered through the Faculty of Arts. But you can't do a double major in electrical engineering and philosophy because one's Faculty of Applied Science, the other is Faculty of Arts. But you could do 2 degrees. And I'm like, really? Okay, so how'd that work? So we sat down and worked out a timeline of courses I would take. And long story short, I ended up, I did finish my electrical engineering degree and got my Bachelor of Applied Science. But I also met all the requirements for the philosophy degree, so I got a Bachelor of Arts in that as well. And from a career perspective, I don't know that the philosophy led to a job, but that wasn't the purpose.
I think that's the standing joke, isn't it?
Right?
It's never the purpose, yeah.
But that wasn't the goal. The goal was to become educated and understand better how the world works and how the mind works. And that's one of the things I'm happiest that I've ever done.
I've always contended that there's a huge relationship between that side of it, the art side and the science side. Because science without the why is just science. But science with a why is more meaningful. Like it's when
isn't it science-y?
It's science-arty.
Science-ish. If you look at all the great scientists in history, Newton, for example, he wasn't called a scientist at the time. He was called a natural philosopher.
Well, philosophy and science were basically the same thing if you go far enough back.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, my degree is in business and in psychology.
Right on.
And at the time, U of W. Shout out. But at the time,
But he's a lot older than you. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I was there when they were digging the hole in the ground. But I was ridiculed. Like, what do you? They're 2 different things. No, they're identical. You have to understand why people are buying things, and why are you building things for them, and why the whole psychology of the consumer is essential to building any business. But that thinking back then, just like the philosophy and engineering, and I had a couple tech companies, and it was always a battle with some of the engineers for them to truly understand the why. Like, why are we building this? Don't come to me and say, I want to build this because I can. Tell me why you're going to build it. How is that going to be impactful? How are people going to use it? What's going to keep them engaged? Very rarely could they give me an answer.
And how does this benefit humanity?
And how does it benefit humanity? Because
what you need is you need a founder.
You need a founder
to direct the people and get the vision.
Yeah, or sometimes 2 founders.
2 founders is better than 1.
And that sort of takes us right to RIM.
I was going to say that's a terrific segue into what happened next.
That's why I get to
do
this job.
right after graduating?
Well, so when I worked at Research in Motion, which of course now is known as BlackBerry, when I started there, it was my last co-op work term in electrical engineering, not in philosophy. But
they didn't hire too many philosophers.
Well, actually, in the interview, one of the questions I remember them asking me was, so why are you doing both? And I gave them pretty much the same answer I just gave you now. But they were looking for engineers really at that time. And this was in, I want to say 1996, if I'm thinking back correctly. So I applied to this co-op job, and it was going to be my last work term. And it sounded interesting. It was, the job description talked about wireless communication. And, I had come from a past where, as a teenager, I had a Commodore 64, and it was never very easy for me to like I led a very good social life through BBSs. Now I don't know.
I know those.
Do you know what a BBS?
Of course I do.
The
Bulletin
bulletin board
boards.
systems.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good, very good. Yeah. So we would connect our Commodore 64s to each other through modems that would dial up on phone lines and send, at 300 bits per second. Sometimes if I typed really fast, I could out-type the modem speed. Not really, but I came close. And so. So I got this program that let us communicate with each other doing that. And I didn't like the way the program was done, so I decided, as many Commodore 64 enthusiasts did at the time, to write my own. And I ran this thing I had my own phone line. I ran it out of my a closet at my parents' house. They were like, what are you doing? Like, what is this thing? What is this BBC?
Do we need to be worried about you?
They were worried about me because they thought maybe I was wasting time on this instead of on school things. I said, well, look, I'm in school. I'm getting all 90s in my assignments, my grades, and everything. I'm obviously meeting the academic requirements of my high school, but I'm also enjoying this other, hobby, if you want to call it that, as well. And there's no harm in it. There's no significant cost in it. And who knows? It might lead to something in technology later in the future. So, fast forward, some 5-10 years, and here I am in a boardroom at RIM, this very small company, I think maybe 50 people at the time, if that, and they're showing me this wooden block with a hinge and a screen drawn on it and a keyboard on it, and they're saying that this is something you could type a message on and send it to somebody, and then they could type back. And I'm like, oh, you mean like a pager? And I had an actual pager, right? And I was a student. I didn't have money for a cell phone, but I had a pager. So I was like, oh, like this. They're like, yeah, like that. But it has a keyboard and the person can call you back. I said, or message you back. I said, well, that's terrific because on this pager, I just get a phone number and I have to go find a payphone. I have to call the person and see what they want. And, sometimes if it might just be like, I might get a code like a 1 means hello, and a 2 means call me back when you have a moment, and a 3 means, I don't know, dinner is ready or whatever, right? So, but
That's a Motorola?
That was, it was a Motorola one-way numeric pager. Yeah, it was a really great little device, but it was one-way communication. You couldn't respond with it, but through finding a payphone. So anyways, I was just absolutely floored. And I was like, okay, so tell me about the technology behind this. How does it work? And it ran on this network called Mobitex at the time. And it was that was designed by a Swedish company called Ericsson. And they had some minimal deployment throughout major cities in Canada for things like fire trucks and ambulances to be able to send and receive text messages, not SMS messages, but something similar. And I was hooked. I'm like, I want this job. More than anything in the world right now, I want this job. And when I got my, they give you your job offers, like it's a ranking thing that U of W does with the co-op. And I got my ranking sheet. I just wanted to work at RIM. And it was blank. And I was so heartbroken. I thought, they didn't like me. They didn't give me the job. Well, it's fine. I'll work a different job. But I really wanted that job. But it wasn't like a not rated. It was blank. So I decided I was going to pick up the phone and call the two interviewers and say, why is it blank? They said, no, we offered you the job. Did it not show up? Yeah, I think maybe it didn't get through in time or whatever, but we've offered you the job if you want it. I'm like, yes, I want it.
Thank goodness I phoned
Good thing
you.
you phoned, yeah.
And it comes with a salary, right? And I'm like, I'll pay you to work there.
What?
No, I'm kidding. But it was such a great opportunity, and I don't think at the time any of us realized just how incredibly popular and world-changing the BlackBerry would be, because it was the first device that would allow you to send and receive data over these cell phone networks, or eventually cell phone networks. Mobitex was not a cell phone network, but to be able to do that. And we came at that with a user experience mindset. We came at that with a immediacy of a communication mindset, and we sold the product to companies on the promise of being able to respond more quickly to urgent situations and to your customers than you ever could before. It just makes you so much more productive. And every time I don't use a BlackBerry anymore now, obviously, but every time I use my phone, I think back to, sending those early emails.
Yeah.
on this device, and we did move beyond a wooden mock-up eventually. Anyway, it was a really, really fun time. And so I took the co-op job and got some really exciting projects, and then that turned into a full-time job offer when I graduated. So I'm so grateful for that, because it was probably the single most life-changing moment for me, was this aha moment of we can just communicate with each other from anywhere, two ways. And it sounds so, like when I say it now, it's like, oh, what's the big deal, right? We all have this, supercomputer in our pockets right now. But at the time, right, we're talking approximately 1996.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, there was nothing like it out there.
So you're working with some seasoned engineers and some other newbie engineers.
Yeah,
you're all working together to try to figure this thing out, led by Mike and Doug. What was the atmosphere like there? The environment, the other employees. Well, like, how did you? Because it's not really fully defined yet. At that point,
I think
right?
we're still finding our way in terms of how to get things done. Let me say, first of all, that the people I worked with at that time were the smartest people I've met in my life. I would walk into a room, I would feel so humbled being surrounded by these incredibly, incredibly gifted, talented, smart people who had figured so much out. And a lot of these technology questions were yet unanswered. The research wasn't there. Like we had people doing research into antenna propagation models for embedded antennas inside these handheld devices. Like they didn't have an external antenna. Everything before that had an external antenna. Your cell phone, if you had one at the time, had a retractable antenna that you had to pull out. Right? I had a cordless phone in my apartment.
There's a gentleman that had a whole bunch of patents on the internal Perrin. His last name Perrin? Perrick?
Are you thinking Perry Yarmashevsky?
No. It'll come to me. Yeah, okay. It's been a while, but and the reason I know of him is he's very much into organic farming.
That makes a lot of sense.
Why do I
Bill.
know that? Because I dabbled in it a bit for a while, and he always came out with his wife and
his antenna.
And we talked about the patents and the antenna. My dad worked for Raytheon.
Okay.
So
there's the connection.
There's the
Another connection, Bill.
I remember them on Phillips Street
Yes,
with the big
exactly.
rotating radar thing on the top there. And
Exactly.
Yeah. Very cool.
So, anyways, so you're working with all these guys that I'm sure you're not giving yourself enough credit, but.
No. Anything I've ever accomplished was only because I was surrounded by such intelligent people.
And they always said, "And here comes the philosopher."
No.
He walks around the room. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Why are you doing that?
Because I'm supposed to.
when you walk into a room with these incredibly smart people, and the collective IQ in that room is well into the 4 digits, right?
Yeah.
No, these were some very, very talented people who just had different ways of thinking about how to get things done. That I think it's not just a matter of who they were, but being given the freedom to experiment and do things.
So the essence of creativity.
There were
that they're not inhibited necessarily at that stage to perform.
No, and before the show we were talking a bit about working outside the scope of your assignment, right? And this was something that was not discouraged. And I think when you have an idea at that stage of a company, when you have an idea of, well, how can we make this antenna more sensitive? How can we make this battery last longer? I do remember little signs up on the wall, have you saved a milliwatt today? Right?
That's awesome.
We wanted
Save a milliwatt.
Our device would compete not with cell phones but with pagers. That means we needed that first well, it wasn't called a BlackBerry at the time. It was called an interactive pager, and it had a little @ symbol for the A in active. That device had to run for 3 weeks on a single AA battery.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so yeah, that was a pretty remarkable. One way, just memory's starting to fail me now, but one I remember is in the software, when you're typing and there's nothing being refreshed on the screen other than the key that you're pressing and it's being written into a memory buffer and it's being displayed on the screen, we would shut down the processor. I think this thing ran on a 386 processor that Intel was running for us at, was it 1 volt or 3.3? It was like some low voltage, mobile optimized 386 processor. Again, this is mid 90s. This was pretty advanced for the time. We would shut down the processor in between keystrokes to save a milliwatt. Well, those milliwatts over the course of many keystrokes might add up to an extra day or two toward that 21-day goal. And, you have many other examples of things like that. But it takes some really, I wouldn't have thought of that on my own, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't my idea. I had nothing to do with it. But you get this group of people coming together in a room and putting out ideas for how to accomplish these sorts of things. And then...
so where were these people from? Were there a lot of them from U of W?
A lot of them were from U of W, yeah. And whether they came out of the engineering programs themselves as co-op students, maybe the year before, the year before that, or from elsewhere. Most of them were, as I recall, young, 20s, 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And, at that age, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
Right? You might have an idea that, someone my age now, I'm 52, right? So someone my age right now might say, no, that's a really dumb idea. You shouldn't waste your time going down that path because it's not going to lead anywhere. Because I tried it once, and it didn't work. I'm not really like that, but that's maybe how someone my age might respond to what seems like a weird idea, right? But at that age, when you're I would have been 23, 24 at the time. When you're at that age, you don't think to yourself, I shouldn't do it this way. No one's telling you not to. You try it, and a lot of times you're going to fail. A lot of times the idea is not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
But we can only learn from failures. We don't learn a whole lot from success, right? When we are successful in something, we find out what worked in that one specific circumstance. But when we fail at something, there's always a lesson to be learned that is much more generally, broadly applicable. Right?
We have this correlation between founders and musicians. And we were talking to Noel Castell about the process of writing a song and the amount of failures versus success, if any success. It's a repetitive process of failures until you get to the success, and it takes patience and perseverance.
Well, even seasoned songwriters, like I think Dua Lipa said she wrote well over 100 songs before she came up with 10 for her record, which is actually pretty good ratio. Yeah. For a seasoned, very, very well recorded, songwriter. But imagine if you weren't as skilled, you got to write 30 to 1, 50 before you get one that you're happy with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of the nature of our environment, our society, is that everybody expects that they're supposed to be successful right off the bat. So to be in an environment where 30 other people have the same recognition that we have to just try it. We have to try it, and eventually something's going to work here. As long as we're thinking logically about it.
I think that goes back to something you said earlier about looking at the real fake world around us in social circles, because that's where success is instant. And that's where everyone looks, and especially youth, look to these things of, oh, look, it's an instant success, but they don't see the 100 trials in order to get that one moment. That viral TikTok, they made thousands of them before one of them actually made it up. But they don't ever see that. They just see it as instant success, and then my turn's coming.
That's so true.
The world is not teaching you
and it doesn't work,
that.
and then they just give up. So they've learned to give up early.
Well, they've been taught to give up.
Yeah.
Because when something is done well, it's made to look easy.
Yeah, it's effortless.
You don't see all of the effort that went into making it happen.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think I think people do give up when they don't achieve instant success if they think that instant success is the norm. And but there's a lot of things that you try that don't work until you do have that success. And I'll give you one example. Since we were talking about early days of RIM, my first assignment as a co-op student was to take a radio modem. Now this was a module that was just like a miniature module that could send and receive data wirelessly, right? So you need to connect a power source to it. You need to connect an antenna to it. You need to connect some kind of a processor to run a piece of software to do something with it, right? And maybe a screen or a keyboard if you're trying to build a BlackBerry, but maybe a GPS if you're doing fleet management in vehicles or whatever you're trying to make. So my assignment was to take a credit card, one of these point of sale terminals that was, and RIM, about a year before I joined, had actually developed a working model of one of these. It's a wireless credit card authorization terminal. Nowadays, we see them everywhere. You go to a restaurant, they bring it to your table.
Stripes
Exactly.
Yeah.
But at the time, you had to walk up to the cash because these things were not wireless. And I think they trialed them at the Sky Dome during Jay's game, so you could pay for your hot dog and popcorn and beer in the stands with a credit card. And I think the local Zaire's was using them in the garden center just to see how it would work, because they don't have telephone lines running out into the garden center, right? So, but we, as in RIM, was not a credit card machine company.
We were an e-commerce company.
Yeah, we were a wireless communication company. So the idea was that we would manufacture these radio modems that we were very good at doing that part, and then sell them to other companies to integrate into their devices. So it was, hey, we have this. I don't know if I should say the name. I guess it's a long time ago. It's Verifone was the company who was making these credit card terminals, and the idea was, could we put our radio modem inside their terminal to make it wireless? And then if we can prove the concept to them that, hey, you could buy our radio modems and make your devices wireless, then we would sell them our radio modems. Anyway, so it fell to me to make this thing work. Now, I think if you were to take this idea to somebody today and say, hey, we need you to take this radio module and this credit card terminal, and they're not designed by the same company, and you got to make them work with each other. I think a lot of people might say, well, I don't think that's really possible because you're going to run into all these problems, right? There's these considerations you have to make. It's not really designed to do that. And have you thought of this and that? And they'll come up with 100 reasons why it wouldn't work. Mm-hmm. But I was a 23-year-old starry-eyed co-op student who was given this assignment, and oh, by the way, if it does work, it's probably going to take like 6 months to a year to make this thing work. So I was told, just make it work and see what happens. I said, okay. So I had this thing working in under 3 weeks, and because I didn't know that it's not supposed to be that fast, right? And I'll be honest with you, it was ugly. I had wires hanging out of the thing, but I got it done.
That wasn't the objective.
That wasn't
the looks was not the objective.
No, it was just to show that it was just a proof of concept to be done. And so, I took it back and said, okay, well, here's a very ugly prototype. And, here's how I did the battery, and here's how I connected the antenna, and here's the antenna design.
It's a lot better than a piece of wood.
It is a lot better than a piece of wood. But it gets better because the response I got is, oh, that's really terrific. Oh, you got all that done in like 3 weeks. That's awesome. Well done. Okay, now we get someone from software to write the code to have it do actual authorizations, and then we can demonstrate it to Verifone. I said, no, I've already done that. I wrote the code. Right? I didn't know I wasn't. So when I talk about working outside the scope of your assignment, and I'm like, I've done authorizations. I asked Verifone for a fake credit card that will always authorize, and it's going to the bank, and we're going through this gateway to do it, and there's a server piece and all this, but it's all done. It's all like, I have the authorizations here.
Already done.
And it was done. And it was done because I didn't know that it wasn't possible to get done in such a short period of time.
Wow, what a great point.
Yeah. And I think that when And just because, when you're young, you don't know what you don't know, like I was saying, and this is an example of that. I think it's important not to lose sight of that as you get older and more experienced. you might become battle hardened, right? You might, or battle weary, where you're like, oh, I went down this path once before, it didn't work out, man. I don't want to waste another 6 months of my life on this. And but when you're, I think it's like, well, let's try this again. We'll do things a little differently. We'll use the lessons that we learned from the last time it didn't work, but maybe the concept was sound. And then we'll see what does work. And maybe this time around it will be successful. And I think there's a lot more room for success when you're willing to revisit something using lessons that you've learned from failures in the past than having, a successful outcome like I did with this credit card machine because I simply didn't know that it wasn't supposed to be that easy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. My first business, we went from a concept to 2.4 million in sales in 6 months.
Well done.
Yeah. Well, I tried it again. It didn't work.
So what was different?
I didn't know. It's the things I didn't know.
Okay.
It's the it was a retail product, and we were launching it was conceived in June, and it was a winter product called Frostbuster. Well, I didn't know that retail did all their winter buying in the spring. I didn't know that we had to. There was a lot of things. I don't want to get into it. This is not my episode. But what we realized was ultimately that we didn't know anything, and we were listening to whatever. We were listening to the customer side. We were listening to the retailers. Whatever they said, we did, and then we sort of played one against the other, and but ultimately, and it was a good product. I mean, that helped, and it was proven industrially, and so we knew that part was going to work. But we had no relationships with retailers. But I think it was our innocence, and we didn't know it should not have worked, and we just pursued it.
That's awesome.
But really... it's the same idea. It's that thing where I like to tell founders that, and I hate to get in the way of founders when they present an idea, because I don't want to be the one that says, I don't think that's going to work.
That's my job.
That's your job, and I'll bring him in for that. But the whole thing about not knowing it is a beautiful point that we don't really talk about too much.
Yeah. Not knowing the limitations, and you just blow right past them.
Yeah. Well, look at these artists too, who have done extremely well when they're 16 years old. They didn't know they weren't supposed to be successful. It's funny how much we're held back sometimes by these arbitrary rules and boundaries that we either self-impose or that others put on us that really are not grounded in any sort of reality when it comes to actually being able to achieve the goal. And then we don't even try something because we think we're not supposed to, or we prejudge that it's going to be a failure when in fact it could have been a quite successful route to go down.
I think that's a product of age. In a sense, the mind is not as pliable as it gets older, like your muscles. It's like everything else. We are biological, and we have a capability to, just think. When you're a child, you can heal fast. Your growth is so much faster. So all these things are much quicker when you're younger. You don't have the paradigms of your mind that are stopping you because you don't know what the limits are. But as you age and you experience, it's typically the case that these things all slow down because we start to build those internal mental walls, and it's part of how our minds work. It's the pliability gets lost because we attain an opportunity to attain longevity versus at the beginning, we don't know what longevity means. So there's no constraint.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We become more risk averse as we get older.
Of course,
we also get more responsibilities. We have children, we have houses, mortgages, and all of those.
Some
things.
of us do.
Some of us do. So, you were with RIM for 12 years, and that's the first time.
Yeah. So I was there for 12 years, and then I took 2 years off, and then I went back into a different role. And
before we get into that, though. Had things changed over those 12 years? I mean, you go from a founder, you're hiring, by that time, 12 years later, you probably have 1,200 employees?
Yeah, probably. At one point, maybe even 10 times that. I mean, it was
12,000. Yeah.
we were well into, what was our peak? I think it might have been like 15 or 20,000 people globally. It was.
Wow.
I mean, I may be misstating that. I don't know exactly, but it was a very, very large number at
So
the
it's
peak.
a totally different company from when, I mean, how many when you started? 50?
Yeah, 52, I think.
52 with a wooden block.
Yeah, 52 and a wooden block.
Yeah. Yeah.
What employee number was the block?
So there was a lot that changed in that time. And one thing that remained constant, I was always supported, right? In any project that I wanted to pursue, I was always supported, and the resources were given to me to do what I needed to do. But one thing that did change is what I alluded to earlier about stepping outside the scope of your assignment. So for example, with that credit card terminal, I stepped outside the scope of my assignment, not deliberately, I just assumed it needed to be done, by writing the software to be able to actually do end-to-end credit card authorizations and testing it out with an actual bank and doing all that, right? I did that because I felt it was necessary, but it wasn't really
But you knew the
expected.
why.
But I knew the why, and
Yeah.
I wanted, just showing a piece of hardware with a bunch of wires hanging out of it doesn't make for a very
Yeah.
impressive demonstration.
I did it. Sure
Better than
you
a wooden
did.
block.
But what happens, a decade and a half later, especially when I went back the second time around, there were much more clearly defined roles, and there was an expectation that you wouldn't really step outside of that role. If something needed to be done, you engaged the individuals or the teams whose responsibility it was to do those things. And, that's great. I think it's really helpful to bring in experts from other areas to get things done. The problem is that they had their own assignments. They had their own things that they had to focus on, their own priorities. So if I, discover, a million unanswered email in an unmonitored inbox, for example, and I bring this to someone's attention, well, nobody's really tasked with understanding, well, why did that happen? Why is there a backlog of, why is nobody reading through these and responding to them? Even if it's something automated, why are customers being left hanging? This is not acceptable, right? But it's nobody's job to do that because this wasn't a problem that anyone expected to arise. So I can engage all the teams I want whose job it is to support customers and deal with that, and not just clear the backlog, but also to prevent it from growing, from happening again.
There's a reason it's coming.
But nobody's tasked with that. Nobody's job is to do that. So, I decided to take it on my own. In addition to my regular job, and this wasn't exactly a 9-to-5 environment. You worked into the evening, weekends, whatever. You just got things done. To work through why this is happening, figure out a solution, and then present that solution to someone who can, for example, change the code to, and it was kind of dumb. There was like a email address hard coded into an app somewhere. I think, I don't know. I could be remembering wrong, but it was something that was fairly easy to fix, but it shouldn't have been done that way in the first place. But instead of being taken seriously as, this is a problem and it needs to be fixed, and by the way, here's the solution, there was pushback of, well, this is not your area of responsibility, don't worry about it. Well, okay, I mean, I'm still an employee here, I'm still a shareholder here, I'm still, because we're all shareholders at that point, I'm still, I love the company I work for. I'm not just here for a paycheck. I genuinely believe in what we're doing, and I want us to be successful. I'm very proud of the work that we've done. I don't want to see that thrown away by ignoring all these customers. Well, when there's pushback to not do this because it's outside the scope of your assignment, then it's like, okay, well, then somebody's got to do it. And if nobody's going to do it, then I've got to do it, or it doesn't get done. And I think what happens at some companies when you reach that stage is like, well, maybe it's better for it not to get done than for people to be just doing random tasks that are outside their scope, because that's very unstructured. And doing those things when they need to be done and just saying, I'm just going to do it, right? The light bulb's burnt out. Now I can put in a work order and have it changed next week, or I can just change the light bulb myself right now, right?
Yeah.
Which one's going to be easier? I'll just change the light bulb myself.
Isn't that similar to the constraints of being that one who's employee 52, where you don't know what you're doing shouldn't work? I mean, it builds in all of these constraints.
Even just in terms of a job description.
In terms of the job description
Right.
and the silos that get created as a result, tears away at that innovation and creation that made the company successful in the first place. I think it's a very dangerous scenario. I've never been one for corporations.
But how do you scale without losing a bit of that?
Yeah.
That's a hard.
Well, you will inevitably lose some of that, and I would even say that having very clearly defined role descriptions becomes more important as the company gets larger, because you have to maintain. It's impossible. You can't manage 20,000 people the way that you can manage 50 people.
Yeah.
It's just impossible. And having everybody just off doing their own thing isn't going to work. But you need to allow the flexibility for people to step outside of their role when needed to take care of something that could otherwise become a failure point for you. And and having that flexibility and the larger a company gets, the more protective people become of their own roles and their own teams. And
We call that ego.
Lest your whole team gets fired.
Well, yeah, that happens, and so it's I think there has to be a happy middle ground, right? And I think this is no reflection on the successes that RIM had, but I think that there needed to be more allowance for people stepping outside the scope of their assignments to get things done as needed, even as the company grew larger.
Almost needed to be an overseer that could say, yeah, go ahead. We need you to do this role, and if it's not affecting that role, sort of like when you were on your Commodore 64 and your parents were saying, what are you doing in there in your closet? A little weird, but
It's the only space in the house.
it's privacy, man. But you're still getting good grades.
Well,
So if you're still performing in your job, and what I'm getting at is that if there's that room to say, okay, I know this is outside of my purview, I'm going to go to this overseer who will look over how is everything working together, and this overseer can say, okay, as long as it's not impacting your school, go for it. And I'll try to help. And let's have this department that sort of shifts around and says, okay, let's keep that spirit of creativity and problem solving, or problem identification, PI and PS, problem identification, problem solving. If you can build that process into the employment standards, then you can grow even bigger. I think Jobs
So what you're
did
saying
that.
is that Rim should have hired his mom.
Yes. Was it your mom or your dad that said But it's true,
Both.
though. I think it's true.
Yeah.
You needed a mom and dad to be
Yeah,
in there
yeah.
who were open-minded and willing to.
What period of RIM are we talking about at this point?
So the first time around was, I may be off by a year on either side, but I think it was from 96 to 2008, and then 2010 to 2012.
And
if
in
I
the
recall.
2010 to 2012, now your leadership has changed.
Oh yes, yeah. So now it's a larger company, but we're also under competitive threat from Apple, and Android was.
But the
emerging at that time
director,
as well.
I mean, your whole cupola of direction changed. I can't remember when that was, but when Mike let go and brought in, what was his name, the German guy.
Oh, I know who you mean.
He was so well remembered that we all remember his name. But you know what I mean? The whole company changed. It wasn't just, from your level up or down. It was in every direction, the leadership, the board, so like all mandates became different. And that's also a big growing change for the staffing and for the teams and everything, because then you get new players and they're like, oh wait, the teams aren't going to be this, they're going to be that, and we're going to integrate sideways versus vertically, and you have all these other cultural changes that happen on top of the knowledge change. So it's a really big to-do list.
Well, there was a huge amount of institutional knowledge that was just residing in the brains of the people who worked there, and many of them were no longer working there. And so the management that was coordinating what was being done at that point was working without the benefit of those people who had been there for quite a long time and understood very well the why of how something was done a certain way. And so when you take out the why, you're left with a system that was designed a certain way, but you don't know necessarily why it was done that way. You might make decisions about how to change that system or how to apply it to a new project without fully understanding the reasoning why it was done.
Seems like
in a
that's
certain
the
way in the
real,
first place.
I wish they would
the real
teach this.
driver. The real driver here is why.
Yeah,
like
I
kids
really
always
wish
ask,
they would
why,
teach this
why,
in
why?
the MBA programs, because you end up getting MBAs who take over these positions, but they don't understand the why. Why was it built like this in the first place? Yeah. I remember that guy's name, by the way. Mark Peason.
Okay.
Do you remember Mark?
I don't. I'm sorry. We may have worked in different departments.
Oh, okay, because he was the one that was behind the antenna. I wanted to bring that up because oftentimes I try to bring up a name that I never remember. I just want the people to know. Yeah. I can remember a name.
He was only Googling
This is
that
a
for
memory
10
test.
minutes.
I was. I know. I didn't hear a damn word you said earlier, but I found the name.
And I think that's the real story of RIM is these incredibly clever people who just figured out how to do things in ways that no one else had figured out before. It wasn't just about building a product. It's about doing the research and understanding the science behind it to make something work. Because the types of radio sensitivity and noise rejection on these filters that we were putting in there, like a lot of that came out of research that was being done in-house at RIM because no one else was doing it. And when you see the emphasis that Mike Lazaridis put on physics research, I mean, he founded the
Quantum,
the Perimeter
Institute, right?
The research that goes into that eventually finds its way into products that benefit humanity, right? But somebody's got to do that research. When you think back to probably the single most humanity-changing invention of all time was the invention of the transistor. And, probably the invention of air conditioning because it allowed people to actually work inside. But I digress.
We're not talking about the printing press.
No,
or
we're not talking about the
actually
printing
important
press.
here, but
Yeah. So still electrical engineering, maybe a little biased for the transistor. But, that came out of, that wasn't a transistor wasn't designed to solve the problems that it solved.
No.
It came up, and then some really, really smart people found all these incredible uses for it and brought us this, whole, golden age of computing out of that, and to completely change how we do things. Those are the types of research that need to continue happening so that we can do things like have wireless communication devices that run for 3 weeks on a single AA battery in 1996.
You get to these fundraisers for cancer research or heart and stroke research, and people are complaining about, well, I never see a cure coming out, or we've been doing this for 50 years and nothing's coming out. But the thing that they don't understand is it's an incremental process, and it without the ability to just fail many, 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 many times, you'll never get to the answer. So I think it's a good lesson to learn. So I want to be cognizant of the time here, because I also want to talk about some of the other things you do, because you're more than just RIM. You're more than electrical engineering and a lot to do with philosophy to a big extent. You got into so you decided to found another company around art.
Yes. So Brad Mabey, who was VP of technical support at RIM, had gone to the ROM, and he had seen an exhibit of paintings on iPads by, I want to say, David Hockney, if I'm remembering right. And there was a interview that CBC Radio had done with David Hockney, where they asked him about the art that he was creating on iPads or maybe it was iPhones, but the point is that he would wake up and he would draw a sketch on a tablet, on a screen. And these were being exhibited in the museum, and it was somewhat ephemeral in the sense that if you were to turn off these devices, the art would disappear. You turn them back on, and they reappear. And it was really cool because nobody of his stature was really doing art that way yet at the time. And as almost an afterthought, the CBC interviewer at the end said, it's I guess you just can't sell the art, the way you would with, say, an oil painting or a charcoal drawing. And David Hockney's response was, no, I guess you can't. And that was it. That was the interview. And Brad listened to this and thought, well, why not?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he called me up and said, I've got this really terrific idea. We're going to create a platform for digital artists to be able to showcase their work, to be able to sell it, to be able to have authenticated limited edition runs of digital art, which is a technology as well as a conceptual problem to sort out, and also to create digital versions of their physical artwork and be able to market that. But it's going to the artists. The revenue is going to the artists. We're going to distribute a fraction of that into art education programs and support for the arts community. And this is a really great way of using technology to help bring more revenue to especially emerging artists who may be struggling early in their careers to find people willing to
Awareness,
buy
distribution.
and this this is a
yeah.
problem that it still exists today, but this was back in 2012, 2013, 2012, I think. So I went on board with him to do that, and we brought on Richard Evers, who was also at RIM, and I knew him from I think I first met him when I was about 9 or 10 years old at a World of Commodore show in Toronto at the International Centre by the airport, because so
Where
Richard,
geeks meet.
Yeah, I was a little kid. I was a little kid with a Commodore 64, and but Richard was a bit older than me, and he was the publisher of a magazine called Transactor, which was did technical deep dives on Commodore 64 and Commodore Amiga, computers, programming, all kinds of really terrific things. And so we built a platform for artists to showcase and sell their work. And now one of the decisions we made early on was to build the platform from scratch ourselves rather than to take off-the-shelf components. And the idea there was that we could long-term scale things the way we want and really have
zero dependencies.
And have things be exactly the way we wanted. Trouble is that took a really long time to do.
Sure.
And in hindsight, maybe a better use of our resources might have been for version 1 to, and then when I talk about learning from, when things don't work the way we expect, maybe a better approach might have been to assemble something, not from scratch.
But a proof of concept.
Work on V2 in the background, from the ground up, something scalable and everything, but then be able to actually take the solution fairly quickly to artists and market the idea to them so that they can sign on as artists for this platform rather than spending so much time on the development. So that's a lesson that we
also
learned
bringing
from
in the clients or the customers early or the subject matter early so that they can contribute and sort of become part of the community.
Exactly. And I'm still very proud of the work that we did for that. We designed a system that was so scalable, that was so robust, that was so customizable, and we could instantly change the look and feel of something. We could change the database structures, anything that we needed to do, we could do right away because we built it from the ground up. Maybe that wasn't the most effective approach for version 1, and so now if somebody asks me what approach to take if they have a nugget of an idea that they want to bring to fruition, my suggestion is, build a proof of concept. Take some off-the-shelf software components, maybe something open source that you can cobble together pieces from different things, something that works, something that's good enough to demonstrate to some early clients, to some investors, to early adopters, and see what works. Because if you were to build the most amazing platform, but it's not what people want, you're going to have to put so much work into changing that later. So do the proof of concept, get it out there, and then for scaling and long-term deployment, you can build your own platform from the ground up. So that would be a lesson learned there.
So were the three of you at all involved in the arts prior?
No, so we all have technical backgrounds.
Yeah,
And
okay.
this
So
is-
you know where I'm getting at.
I do, yeah.
So,
So
you're
we were-
you're building a solution for a problem that you think somebody else is having.
And we were building a technology platform to solve that problem. And we ourselves are not artists trying to market our own digital art. And so a lot of it is, and there's a lot of market research that went into it, a lot of focus groups and talking to artists, of course. But still, we're guessing what it is that,
Right.
that they might want rather than
And
building
it's
it for
all
ourselves.
that stuff in the
Yeah.
beginning is intent.
It is.
It's
it is.
not actual. I just love all these focus groups and these
Yeah.
market research. It's like, okay.
Okay,
well,
so what
But I
happened to
see
it?
Ed chuckling, and I can see why. Yeah.
What happened to it?
So we spent all our funds on product development, and then ultimately, when it came time for marketing, it was resource-wise, we were just tapped out at that point. So we did a bit of a soft launch, and then that's about where it ended. So.
And did you had early adopters, and did you keep it? Like, is it still something that's in the Commodore in the closet? That you
No,
That was your problem. You were using the Commodore.
Mom's using it.
They just relaunched Commodore, by the way.
I saw that. Yeah.
I saw
did they really?
yeah, I saw that they bought the company and they're retooling and
You can buy new ones.
you could buy a
Retro.
brand new one. They use the same branding and everything. I was like, wow.
I could go and buy a Commodore 64 right now.
right now, yeah.
Wow, could I get a 300 baud modem to go with it?
Probably not. I think it's all upgraded now.
Oh, I
so I think it'll work on, modern day
Really?
technologies.
I don't see Commodore 64 running Linux.
But the form factor, I think, is what they kept.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That look and feel of that machine's a classic. I mean, that's very nostalgic for me, right?
Yeah.
But this is what people of my generation we had access to these tools that you could build everything from the ground up, right?
Right.
There's so many layers of abstraction now, where if you want to do something with a computer, if you want to write a program to do something, you're going through so many layers before you even understand what the underlying processor is doing. On the Commodore 64, you had assembly language on that 6510 processor, or you could write in Commodore BASIC, which is what most of us did. I did a little bit of both to, one for like ease of implementation, the other for speed, depending on where I needed it. And so you really got to understand the nuts and bolts of how a computer works. And then, as a future engineer, this laid the path for me of how to think about computers. I don't know that today's generation is necessarily getting that level of detail when it comes on to
They're not
how
getting
the
that.
computer
They're
works.
not getting that level of detail on anything.
Yeah.
It's not just your computer. It's your car. It's your bicycle. It's the dishwasher. It's the phone. They look at it. It doesn't work.
Get a new one.
Did you try turning it on? Oh, there's a power button. It's that to that level
They
of.
know the user interface well.
Well, that's all
and
they
that's
know.
it.
Yeah. That's now all they know about everything. Your vehicle, I have a 14-year-old, and it's amazing to me how little they know about the world that they interact with. And I try to do my best to explain. I'm not computer, super intelligent by any means or that kind of thing. But for example, I like motors, and I like to teach him about how an actual motor works, a combustion engine, what does it do and why it does it. And it's mind-blowing to him that there's actually
Little explosions going on
Yeah,
in
there's components that are moving and explosions and pressure retentions and pushing and pulling and all these forces at work. They're clueless because we've made it so easy for them to not have to know.
They got to get in there, get their hands dirty, build it. It's not going to work the first time they build it.
But do you
fix
think
it.
that you can even do that anymore? I don't think, like, especially in the computer world with AI now, why would you do that? Why would you go learn? I mean, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm just saying, but why would someone go in and learn how to code when you can just tell a computer to code for you? It may not be practical, may not be right. It doesn't matter. It's the path of least resistance. And I don't know where it ends. I don't know how it ends.
You're not going to notice necessarily if you're depending on an AI to code for you. You're not going to notice when it makes a catastrophic mistake, and that's the problem. Is you don't have the literacy to recognize a flaw in its reasoning.
Correct.
Right, and that's why using an AI to help you through a coding problem, I'm all for that because it's a learning tool like any other. Having it write the code for you, it might work the first time, it might not work, it might be a shortcut, but it's not. You're not going to recognize issues that come up. So that if you're to actually deploy this code in a in a implemented system that you're selling to people, and then you're something crashes as a result, you're not going to understand why because you're not the one who wrote the code.
No, and I completely agree. And my point is, I'm from a different world of work.
Mm.
So we'll look at espresso, for example.
Yeah.
Making a shot of espresso requires certain components. You need liquid, you need coffee, you need pressure, you need extraction. What they now know is I press the button and it works. Mm-hmm. Well, wait a minute. What about why is it working?
It's the why again.
But we're not teaching the why.
Wasn't that the argument with calculators?
Yeah, but we're not teaching the
days?
why anymore.
Yeah.
And so in the coding world or in the coffee world, the why is not being explained because it's not that we don't want to teach people. They don't want to listen. Mm-hmm. Because there's too much else to has to be.
Speed.
Yeah, it's too much else that has to be learned and known and experienced. So why stop and So it's a little confusing. It's a little hard to understand how we get there.
Makes
I mean, we talked about that with music too.
Well, we had a conversation today because people use guitar amplifiers that have modeling in them. You want to sound like this kind of amp with this kind of pedal and these kind of effects. You just push a button, and now you sound exactly like this person on this album, but you don't know how you got there. But if you want to actually learn why that sounds the way it does, you start at the beginning. You get yourself a single, get yourself a tube amp, one guitar. You plug it in and make every possible sound you can out of that, and then you add another component and see what other things you can add. But using the modeling, you're kind of stuck with presets. It's like we're living on a life of presets now, designed by people who know the why. And what happens when all the people that know the why are gone?
One generation later,
Yeah.
The why will be lost. That knowledge will be lost forever, and then we see things being done and changed in ways that no longer work or don't work the way that we expect. We don't know how to go fix them. We don't know what to do, and I think that's a loss to humanity. So we have to understand this has come up a few times in this talk, hasn't it? The understanding of the why. And so.
Yeah, but it makes sense. I mean, music is the same. I was in the Philharmonic. I was lucky to be in there. Just lucky, the pure luck. It wasn't skill. But that's the first time I learned the origins of music. And it was like eye-opening. And it made it so much richer. And it allowed me to experience it and enjoy it a whole lot better than what I was used to, which is pretty well the pop stuff. And that will be lost because the Philharmonic, Beethoven, Mozart, Handel, all those guys, the kids don't know about it.
No,
it's not in the schools anymore, and that's a recurring subject in our conversations: is how do we get this back into our schools? How do we get our kids learning how to put together an engine? How do we get them to become more tactile? and not dependent upon a little device in your hand or a laptop or something.
It's when the power goes out, we'll figure that one out.
Well, I love the comedian. She says, I'm not afraid because when we have to go up against the younger generation, we'll just turn the electricity off and we'll write in cursive.
You know, it's very viable threats. I
Yeah.
think.
It's so true.
Oh my God, what does this say? Oh my God. So what happened next?
Well, what happened next for me
Yeah.
was I went a completely different path in my career, and I decided to follow down the path of the philosophy degree more than the electrical engineer. The role got out of me as an electrical engineer all it was ever going to get, I think, at that point.
And we thank you for that.
No, I mean, I'm saying that tongue in cheek, of course,
Yeah.
but I really it's a completely different path, but I saw that there was a need for ceremonies, wedding ceremonies, funerals, memorials, other rites of passage that people could celebrate without religious influence. For centuries, if you wanted to get married, you went to a church, or maybe you went to City Hall, but they only do wedding ceremonies on Tuesdays at 2:45 p.m. or whatever, right? I mean, having funerals that were not religious in nature, but that really talked about the entirety of the service was about the life of the individual and how they are remembered. So I did a training program through Humanist Canada to become a humanist officiant, and I write wedding ceremonies primarily. I do funerals as well, but I write wedding ceremonies that are really focused on the story of the couple and what brings them together, how they met, how they spend their time together, what really makes them click. And I share that story as part of their wedding ceremony. There's no religious reading, there's no prayer, there's no talk of holy matrimony or anything of that nature, because that's not what a lot of people want. Even people who do have a religious wedding ceremony often are doing it because they think they're required to, or that there's some kind of obligation, or maybe that's what their parents want.
Well, there was a time when that was the only place you could get married, besides, a very cold City Hall visit.
That's right. And so we have this third option and it's unique within Canada that we have this option in Ontario of having a humanist wedding ceremony. Other provinces have tried and been rejected
Really?
to be most recently in I want to say British Columbia. Where humanists in British Columbia were denied the right to perform wedding ceremonies because they're not recognized as a religion, and the legislation only allows a religion to perform the rites of marriage, other than if you were to have a civil service at say City Hall or in a courthouse.
But what about in the U.S., because of the way their constitution is structured?
Well, in the U.S.,
Is
it's a
it
little bit different.
more
I mean, I
popular?
think anyone can just go online and become ordained and perform a wedding ceremony.
Oh, okay.
But
So it's less controlled that
it's
way.
it's very unregulated. But here in Ontario, it's very, well, in all of Canada, it's very tightly regulated. But humanism in Ontario is recognized as a religion for the purpose
I
of the
thought
Marriage
so,
Act.
yeah.
And it's a religion without a deity. And I guess this is where the British Columbia humanists were rejected, because they don't have a deity. And so is it a religion? Well, I mean, if you're going to reject humanists, then you maybe should reject Buddhists as well, because they don't have a deity, but they're recognized as a religion. At least all kinds of constitutional questions that, and I'm sure they could take that to the Supreme Court of Canada, but that takes lawyers and time and money and all those things. Yeah. Anyway, but in Ontario, we have this ability to perform these ceremonies. So I do about 80 or 90 weddings a year. I keep busy writing personal ceremonies for couples. And
That's more than one a week, sir.
most of them happen in the summertime.
But you would do two in a day?
I
in
would
the
do
summer?
2 in a day.
And probably on alternate days, too.
Yeah.
Like maybe you've got
Friday,
a Thursday,
Saturday,
Friday.
Sunday, yeah.
That's fantastic.
But somebody's getting married at 2:00 and someone else is getting married at 5:00. There's more than enough time to, I don't necessarily like to schedule 2 in a day, but
I would mess that up.
It's-
I would marry the
Mess the
wrong
names
people.
up.
no,
sorry.
Oh, my God.
I've done about 550 weddings at this point. Never been late for a single one.
Wow,
Ever.
that's great.
No, I mean, I'm very punctual.
I am. I
am too, but I'm going to be late to my own funeral.
Yeah, that's right. And the later the
better. You can't be late for a wedding because, of course, there's 100 people waiting for you, right? So I plan to show up, half an hour to an hour
Do you
early.
do funerals too?
I do funerals as well. I don't really advertise that, but I
can tell you that when my dad died, I was so happy to know that Sassan was doing this, and we had him do a party for my dad because we didn't want anything religious. We threw a party. We had live Kevin Coates play. We had live entertainment, beautiful food, and an incredible ceremony.
I wish
met with us and went through.
I
all
wish
the
my
information.
parents could have gone through that because the stuff that we got from the local church here was absolutely horrendous.
Yeah. It was a beautiful party because we wanted people to be able to connect.
Yeah,
that's
I've
the
been
most
to
frustrating
weddings.
thing. You go to a funeral and it's like, hey, there's that person I haven't seen in 10 years, and then they leave afterwards.
Yeah.
But we had an environment where people were able to sit around and talk, but we still had people
But
talking.
even to talk about the life and the union and the people, the why.
Yeah.
It's back to the why again.
Yeah.
Is so much more impactful at a wedding. I've been to a funeral with a humanist, and it was such a beautiful experience. So that's awesome, man. It's just
5 stars.
5 stars. Yeah.
Highly recommended.
See on Google. Where's your website? Do you have a website?
grandriverweddings.ca.
Grandriverweddings.ca.
But it brings me so much joy to
bet.
be able to celebrate with people, whether it's in a marriage ceremony or telling the story of someone's life. Because I love to write. I actually enjoy. I'm a person. I'm a rare person who enjoys public speaking and being able.
You're
to
an
stand
engineer.
I'm an engineer who likes public
speaking and writing.
Well, and this is why when I was at
You're
RIM,
so weird, man.
You're right.
In a good way. Come on.
In a good way.
I revel in my own
great way.
weirdness.
That's okay.
But when I was at RIM, they would send me to conferences to speak because no one else wanted to do it. I'm like, yeah, sign me up.
Well, get that guy with the philosophy degree.
My mind's very warped. So, like, you just said grandriverweddings.ca, and I thought, wow, I would like to have the back page. 10 years divorces. We'll do your monologue for you. It's just, and I don't mean it in serious, but it's amazing the turn that you've made. It's amazing the insight and the opportunity to bring out other things that you are capable and want to show. And gosh, there's so much fun wrapped around what you do that would be fun to add on layers, the B-side of all of this. Like, it's so, weddings are these momentous, happy occasions, but we go through so many occasions in life that don't have the words. And I go back to what Bill was saying about the loss of parents. So I lost both my parents, and I got to do the eulogy for my mom. And my mom was this wonderful, gregarious woman who had tons of friends, and it was an honor to be able to speak on her behalf.
Right on, yeah.
As siblings, we weren't sad. She had come to her end, and she needed to finish the life that she started. So it was okay. But all the people that come into this are coming from a perspective of they knew this person at some point in their vibrant lives, and now they're gone, so they remember that person. And they come with this sorrow and this sadness, and it's overwhelming to have to hear their hurt and pain when you're not hurting anymore because you've already lived the other pieces that they don't see or haven't seen. But the whole story goes to we sat around at the end of the night, the day before the event. And I was like, I had written this thing and I showed my sisters and they're like, oh, that's so beautiful. And I was like, yeah, but now listen to this. And I then flipped it into an AI and had it rap it back as a modern rap song. And my sisters cried with joy. They were like, this is the funniest thing ever. We should play that tomorrow.
Did you?
No.
Sassan does all of his stuff in rap. I don't know if you knew that. Yeah.
Rapping engineer.
But it is
wedding.
cathartic to be able to have someone put these words together that mean things to you and then to hear them in a different setting. So, there's opportunities for you to expand the business.
Steve told me all about you, and I thought, wow, this has got to be a character. And I was so looking forward to this. We're coming near the end now, so we're going to have to wrap up. But I just want to say thank you so much for coming in. and talking with us and having a coffee with us and sharing your experiences and lessons. And so thank you for being you. And,
Oh my goodness! Thank you for having me.
Hopefully,
I
we
feel-
didn't hurt you too much.
your first time?
The coffee was delicious, and I appreciate the walk down memory lane. You had me thinking about events in my life from decades ago that, kind of buried in the deep recesses of my memory and reliving some very happy times in my life. So thank
Thank
you
God
for
they
that
were
opportunity.
happy. We don't want you going home crying.
No, my goodness, no, not at all.
Steve?
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Steve.
I've been wanting to have you on for
yes,
a while,
yeah.
and I'm glad we found a time that worked out. So
Thanks for having me.
yeah, man.
All right. Well, until next time, we'll see you all. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Some mornings are just a damn lie. You deserve better than a watered-down start. Eco Coffee's original blends cut through the bullshit, delivering a taste of bliss that's as raw and real as it gets. Forget the polite pick-me-up. This is an unfiltered rush, an enchanting jolt that will redefine your mornings. There's no faking this kind of pure, unadulterated bliss. It's the only truth you need to start your day.